Bună dimineața, toți din Bucharest. We're starting the day with a walk in Cismigiu Park. It's 31 degrees. It's August and we'll get up to 37 today, so you can guess what that means. It's about as hot here in Romania as it would be in Sicily. It's often slightly hotter than in Bulgaria, because Bulgaria often is sheltered by mountains, so either heat coming from south or from the east doesn't really transfer that deeply into some parts of the country, and where it's often hottest in Bulgaria is the plains, the fields around either Plovdiv, but in particular Haskovo, Stara Zagora, but also the north, Vidin, Ruse, Pleven get unbearably hot in summer. And then, well, in continuation of the Danube plains is Giurgiu and Bucharest, with, well, just the Danube splitting the two countries, and the weather obviously doesn't stop there. It gets very, very hot in Bucharest, often hotter than in Sofia, with a couple degrees in summer. And yeah, that's you shouldn't underestimate the heat in Romania. It can get quite offensive, or should I say it, obtrusive. Cismigiu is a pretty nice park. It's one of the more elegant parks of the city, or at least it's how it used to be. Still, I can't help but notice this very slight hint of decay in the city that I noticed set in when I was here last in 2022. Buildings just in disrepair, there's no funds really to pick anything up. And when I was here living in 2012, there was just a huge upsurge in new parks being constructed, like at the kids park at Constantin Brâncoveanu, super big, just brand new. But this is all probably from that era, you know. And in the meantime, little seems done to keep things up. Although perhaps I'm exaggerating a little bit, because at the same time the city has expanded, in particular south and north. New metro station being added in the south after Bercen. But here things a little bit like in Bulgaria. It seems that the maintenance is falling behind, right? You notice it. So the park that's supposed to be one of the more elegant here in the city, you can see it by the benches. It's actually, the grass is all dead. Well, it's hard to keep that up in summer, right? It would cost an enormous amount of water. But as I said, like, once it's gone, once your grass is gone, the damage becomes worse. Everything requires so much upkeep, and I know that's sort of hard to achieve, but it's, once it's all dried up, you need to replace everything, you know, and it will eventually be more expensive than keeping things up. It's the same with your teeth. I have many friends in Bulgaria who said, why do you go to the dentist that much? Because I go like 3 times a year. I try 4, 2 at minimum, often 3. Yeah, see here, this looks nicer. You say, why do you go to the dentist that much? I haven't been in like 2 years. I said, well, you do the maintenance exactly when you don't need to go to the dentist, when you don't have complaints. It's the same with keeping up cities and infrastructure. You do the upkeep exactly when it's not needed. Because then once you start dental work or renovations, that's when it becomes expensive. But here we are. This is now the more elegant part of Cismigiu. Look at this. It's nicely kept up. Reduces the heat by a little bit under the trees. I remember the summer of 2012 was also like super hot. The temperatures at pharmacies, these thermometers, you know, that you see often on the facade, it showed 49 degrees. And I remember walking the streets, and the streets just melting, attaching to your shoe, and then you need to take them off inside, because otherwise the asphalt would just stick to the carpet. That's how hot it was. And when we were in the office at the place I worked, there was air conditioning, and each Romanian who walked into the office said, "Oh, ce bine aici," like how nice and cool it is here. And I still speak Romanian 13 years later, and it's pretty good. Like yesterday, I had just no problem switching back to the language. I can do just everything in it, all the practical stuff and more, understand everything. If you want to emigrate to a place for retirement, for example, and you would have issues with Bulgarian or just not that bad, or perhaps Polish language or Hungarian, especially the difference between Hungary and Romania will mean you will learn the language in a couple months of practice, or you won't learn it in a lifetime. That's especially if you're older, right? Make a wise choice in that, because Hungarian is a different league than Romanian. It's like you go from easy mode to extreme difficult mode, and that's just one border away. Interesting is that, isn't it? Perhaps I judged a little too fast. This is all pretty nice. Although still, you know, the maintenance is falling behind. And I know in particular that Warsaw is doing a super good job at just keeping the ball up, and I just really admire that. Because as the more a city grows, the more strain on public funds there is, the harder it gets to just keep it up, you know. It is just a very Mediterranean city today. It's just unbearably hot. It's exactly as if you're in Sicily. No difference at all. So Bucharest, ever since the time of communism, has had two airports. It's Otopeni and Băneasa. Băneasa also being called historically Aurel Vlaicu, which they've reopened. Because after communism it sort of fell into disrepair, and it was used mostly for cargo, I believe, not sure, but not for passenger flights. And now they've reopened it for, as far as I can see, just Wizz Air. So with Wizz Air from Warsaw you fly for just a couple tens of euros straight into Băneasa, which is right in the city, and you just walk from the airport around the corner and you're like at the bus stop. You're immediately in the city, next to restaurants, train station and stuff, and the central station. But yeah, sort of urban rail, which is not that great in Bucharest, but metro is great, buses are great, and I do recommend flying into Băneasa. Super convenient, and I'm happy that from Warsaw I can just fly Friday to Sunday and be here for a weekend. It was less accessible when I was in Sofia, because it's still like 400 kilometers by car. Buses take like 12 hours with a bridge crossing at the Friendship Bridge in Rusa Giurgiu. But by now I have easier access to Bucharest, which is strange. I don't even think that Sofia has Ryanair flights to Bucharest anymore. Got to use these just twice. Once I missed the flight, so just, in fact, one time I flew from Sofia to Bucharest. I remember just walking here in 2012, and it was my first experience abroad, living abroad. I had before lived in France, in Belgium. And then I came here, and just after work we just spent hours exploring the city, taking pictures everywhere, and I was just so impressed with how everything looked. Just still am. It's just cool, you know. It's just a cool and underrated city. All this is, I believe, Romanian architecture. Not sure. It was Brâncovanesc, called after Constantin Brâncovanu, but this is still Romanian architecture. You'll see it just pretty much here, and they have a lot of Art Nouveau and stuff. Well, Bucharest, for obvious reasons, was called the Paris of the East. Still somewhat is. It's a nice mix of architecture, and in one street you can just go back in time 60 years with architectural development and styles, which is a nice place to keep your eyes open. And often during communism they built modern blocks in front or around churches or demolished churches entirely. So after behind huge concrete blocks you often find churches in the courtyard and stuff that they just tried to hide with the eradication of religion in that time. But in spite of all that, Romania is still by now one of the more religious countries in Europe. It's obviously Poland, Romania, Italy as well, and Romania being Orthodox. So I'm on Calea Vittorii, which is, well, Freedom Street here in Bucharest, and it hosts some of the best architecture in the city, such as the Cercul Militar, Hotel Capitol, Hotel Capșa, all sort of former glory hotels. So, well, Cercul Militar is the military circus is a government building, but the street itself has a lot of historical significance because here on Calea Vittorii is where the first, or not the first that was in Timișoara, but the results of the uprising of the Romanian nation came into fruition when the shots, I believe the first were found in Timișoara, but then here there was a speech by the back then dictator Nicolae Ceausescu, and the crowd started booing, and then he knew that the jig was up and that he needed to escape with his wife, so he flew to Târgoviște by helicopter. The square is like a little bit up north, where there was a huge balcony where he was doing a speech, and he was taken inside by his security. Securitat, I'm not sure who these agents were, but they took him inside because it was becoming unsafe. Crowds started booing. In Timișoara, shots were fired, and the whole nation came into a sort of uprising against the dictator who had committed so many acts of cruelty. They were captured there by, I don't know, National Guard, the services that were supposed to protect them, but eventually had enough as well, and they turned against them. They gave them a formal judgment, right? They set up a military court in another government building or a school, I believe, in Târgoviște, which is an hour or two north from Bucharest by train, and they were sentenced to execution immediately on the spot. And the wife Elena said, "Împreună," so they wanted to be executed both at the same time, which is exactly what happened. And to record all of the evidence, they did it in a, well, there's no nice way to go about these things, right? But everything was filmed, and it's even on YouTube for just historical purposes. And that's when Romania, well, the transition wasn't smooth, but that's when it evolved into a modern European nation, right? And by now we see Romania in 2025 still has its issues, but let's be very honest, it's gone still a very long way from what it was. And the Romanians, despite the persistent institutional struggles of their country, have done such, I need to take off my sunglasses tonight, have done such a tremendous effort just to get back on track. By now fully developed EU country, and unrecognizable from 1989, when you would have just pure misery. I'm not even going to describe it, but you can see footage, old footage, just the cars from that time still drove around in 2012, and that by now is all gone, all of it is gone. I remember going to the seaside in an old Dacia with the father of my friend from Bucharest here. We drove to the seaside, brilliant people. All of the cars are gone, all of those times are gone, and the misery times, which I wasn't even born in that time, that's all gone. But all of it had the beginning, or at least the involvement here on Calea Vittorii. Right up there. And then up north we have Piazza Vittorii. In the south pretty much this leads to Piazza Neri. Well, not entirely, but it leads to the Spraiul Independenței, which is the river here in Bucharest. This leads to the courthouse somewhere in the back, and then on the left you have Piazza Neri. Piazza Universitatea on the left. as well, University Square with all of the universities where my friends study. And right now Romania is just a country with a lot of brains, right? Strong brains, have a lot of smart people. Many of them leave, but let's hope at some point there will be a return of the bright minds that now mostly live in England, so Romania can just further evolve into the country that it deserves to be. Because let's be very honest, I'm not showing you any nature right now, but the country is just a sort of France in disguise. Just look at Romania's natural beauty, the things it has to offer, cuisine, culture. You would be so surprised. It's not a quiet backwater, guys. It's just in heavy. It's just disguised. That's all I'm going to say.